Welcome to the Bhakti Deep Dive.
We are so glad you're here with us.
Yeah, if you are someone who, loves exploring deep philosophy,
But you want to avoid that super dense academic overload.
exactly, the kind that just makes your eyes glaze over. If that's you, you are in exactly the right place. We have curated a session specifically tailored for you today.
We really have. It's a fascinating one.
We are looking at some really profound excerpts from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's introduction to a landmark text. It's called the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's ambitious, but it is also intensely practical.
Highly practical.
We really want to unpack the true nature of what this text calls the living force. We're going to explore the fundamental differences between us as living entities and the Supreme.
Right.
And we want to uncover the practical secrets of walking through this highly complex material world without getting hopelessly tangled up in it.
Which is easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely. But before we get into the heavy concepts, set the stage for us. What exactly is the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and why are we looking at an introduction to it today?
Well, it helps to start with the title itself, right?
Yeah.
The Chaitanya Charitamrita essentially translates to the character of the living force in immortality.
That is quite a title.
It is. It's the authoritative 16th century biography and theological explanation of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But, and this is key, it presents him not just as a historical figure.
Or just some social reformer from India.
Right. It presents him as the ultimate supreme teacher of bhakti.
And bhakti is?
Bhakti is the path of active, loving, devotional service. This text is foundational because it fundamentally redefines the relationship between the individual and the divine. It takes the concept of God away from something abstract.
Like a distant energy.
Exactly. Distant or purely theoretical. And it transforms it into something deeply personal, vibrant, and incredibly interactive.
And that idea of something being, vibrant and interactive seems to start right with the word Chaitanya.
It does.
Because the text points out that it literally means living force. And I found the basic distinction the source makes here incredibly grounding. It says we can move, we can act, we can make decisions.
Because of that force.
Right. A table or a chair cannot do any of those things because it doesn't possess that living force. All of our conscious activity is just a symptom of it. And the text references the Katha Upanishad to state that this eternal living force belongs to both us and God.
You share that nature.
We are both immortal by our very nature. But, and here's my question, if we share this fundamental immortal living force with the Supreme, what is the actual difference between us?
That is the crucial pivot point in this entire philosophy. The text is very meticulous in clarifying the exact distinction between the ordinary living entity and God.
Okay.
While it is true that both possess that immortal, conscious living force, the minute living entity, which is us, has a distinct inherent tendency to fall down into material nature.
You get pulled in.
We do. The text refers to this material entanglement as Maya, which translates to illusion. God, on the other hand, being the all-powerful Supreme, has absolutely no such tendency.
Because he controls it.
Exactly. Material nature is simply one of his countless varied energies, which means he is the controller of it, and he never comes under its control.
There is a visual analogy in the source material that I absolutely love because it instantly clicked for me.
The cloud analogy.
Yes. It asks you to imagine standing on the ground, looking up at a sky that is just completely choked with thick, dark clouds. That is our current position.
Stuck on the ground.
We are on the ground, caught under the heavy clouds of illusion. But if you were to get into an airplane and fly up above that dense cloud cover, the sun is just shining brilliantly.
It never stops shining.
Exactly. And from way up there, all the massive skyscrapers and sprawling cities that seem so huge from the ground look absolutely tiny and insignificant. The text equates God to that sun. He never, ever falls beneath the clouds of Maya.
What's fascinating here is how the text uses that specific sun and cloud analogy to dismantle a very prominent competing philosophy.
The impersonalist, right?
Yes. It directly addresses the impersonalist philosophers, who are often referred to in these texts as Mayavadis. Their central philosophical argument is that when God comes into the material world, he also falls under the control of Maya.
Just like ordinary living entities do.
Right. They believe the ultimate truth is formless. And any form, even God's form, is a product of illusion. But the source completely debunks this. It points out that God is addressed in the Vedic text as Ashuta,
Wait, clarify that for me. What does achyuta actually mean in this context?
It translates directly to he who never falls down.
Ah, okay,
That
okay.
means his spiritual nature is infallible. Therefore, when Lord Chaitanya comes to earth, he isn't falling into illusion or taking on a material body forced upon him by karma.
He's choosing to come.
Yes, the text asserts that he is Krishna himself, the Supreme, descending by his own internal spiritual potency. He remains completely free from the clouds of Maya.
And there was another great analogy the text uses for that.
The master teacher.
Right, a master teacher who takes up a pencil to show a struggling student how to write the ABCs. You wouldn't look at that teacher and foolishly assume they're just learning the alphabet themselves.
They're simply demonstrating the process.
Exactly. Now, I saw another analogy in the text, and to be honest, it initially confused me. It's the analogy of the water pot.
Yes, another impersonalist idea.
Right. They argue that when a soul finally achieves ultimate spiritual realization, there is absolutely no need to talk or act anymore. They compare the soul to a water pot.
The half-full versus full pot?
Yeah, if the pot is only half full, the water sloshes around and makes a ton of noise.
Mm-hmm.
But if you fill that pot completely to the brim, the water settles and it becomes totally silent.
Right.
So their argument is that a fully realized soul is entirely silent. Are they saying the ultimate goal of spiritual life is to just stop communicating?
Yes. From the impersonalist perspective, the ultimate goal is to merge into the silent, formless infinite. They view individual identity, action, and speech as symptoms of the material disease.
So once you're cured, you go quiet.
Once you are cured, the individual noise stops.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the Vaishnava pushback in this text is just fantastic, and it completely rejects that premise.
It absolutely does.
The text basically says, hold on a minute, we are not clay pots. We are active, conscious, living forces. How can you compare an immortal, active spirit soul to an inanimate object?
You can't.
Right. The source argues that eternal, silent meditation might be perfectly adequate for a water pot, but not for a conscious entity. In fact, it argues the exact opposite.
That realization brings more activity.
Exactly. When a true devotee actually realizes God, suddenly 24 hours in a day isn't nearly enough time to talk about him. The realization doesn't bring a dead silence. It brings endless, joyful glorification.
It's an explosion of expression.
And the text even throws a bit of shade, suggesting that sometimes silence just serves to hide a fool's lack of actual knowledge.
It is a profound philosophical shift from a passive state of realization to a highly active one. And to provide the deeper context for why this is, the source references the Upanishad, which is one of the primary Upanishads.
Okay.
It addresses this concept of the impersonal absolute truth, known as Brahman. Many Eastern philosophies see merging into this silent, formless Brahman as the ultimate finish line.
The final goal.
But the Upanishad explains that this dazzling, impersonal effulgence is actually just a glaring light covering the real personal face of God.
So you're saying they are essentially blinded by the light, they see the glow and think that's all there is?
Precisely. The impersonalists, according to this text, simply do not have the spiritual power or the desire to see past that blinding light. Devotional service, however, goes beyond that silent realization.
It pushes through.
It pushes past the effulgence to connect directly with the Supreme Person, who is the source of that light.
Which fundamentally changes how you would relate to the divine. If God is a person and not just a glowing cloud of energy, it opens up a whole new world.
Completely.
The text notes that simply acknowledging God's greatness is a start, but it really isn't much. Lord Chaitanya's teachings take you far beyond just awe and reverence.
Into much deeper territory.
He introduces these revolutionary levels of relationship. You don't just worship from afar, you can relate to God as a friend, or amazingly as a child. The text gives the example of Mother Yasoda.
Yes, the Mother Yasoda example is central to understanding this intimacy.
It's wild to me. She actually treats the supreme creator of the universe as her own son, to the point of chasing him with a stick when he's naughty and scolding him, saying, "Eat this or you'll die."
It's a very different picture of God.
That seems like a massive departure from the traditional guy with a white beard in the sky imagery.
It turns the traditional religious hierarchy completely upside down.
Yeah.
Usually, religion is based on the living entity approaching God to ask for things.
Daily bread, protection, wealth.
Right. But in this advanced stage of devotional service, the devotee is actually trying to supply God. Mother Yasoda isn't asking Krishna for the universe. She's worried he isn't eating enough.
That is amazing.
It is a state of complete freedom and pure intimacy in the relationship. But the text goes even further than friendship or parenthood.
It does.
Lord Chaitanya's greatest gift is the teaching that the living entity can ultimately relate to God as a lover. It is presented as the highest, most excellent platform of devotional service.
Where God is actually obliged by their love.
Exactly, where the Lord becomes so intensely obliged by the pure love of the devotee that he actually feels unable to fully reciprocate or pay them back.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if we're talking about the absolute climax of love, we have to talk about the supreme mystery of Lord Chaitanya himself.
We do.
The text asks, why did he actually come? What was he feeling? To understand this, we have to look at the very nature of God's pleasure, which the text calls the Hladini potency. Can you break down what that actually means?
This raises an important question regarding the nature of divine enjoyment. We tend to project our own experience onto God, assuming he enjoys things the way we do.
Through material things.
Right. But the text explains that Krishna, the Supreme, has immense potencies, and one of the principal ones is this internal pleasure potency called Hladini. A crucial point here is that God does not seek pleasure in the miserable, temporary material world.
That makes sense.
His ultimate pleasure is found entirely within his own internal spiritual energy. And this pleasure potency is personified as Radharani.
So they're deeply connected.
The source is very clear. Radha and Krishna are fundamentally one. They are the energy and the energetic. You cannot have one without the other, just like you can't have the sun without the sunshine.
Okay.
Krishna manifests himself as Radharani in order to enjoy his own internal pleasure potency.
But then the text introduces this incredible theological paradox that just blew my mind. Krishna is God. He is completely full in himself. He lacks absolutely nothing. And yet the text says he was utterly amazed by Radharani's love for him.
He was captivated by it.
It says Krishna actually started asking 3 profound questions. Why is she so intensely attracted to me? What is my special qualification that draws her in like that? And most importantly, what exactly is she feeling when she experiences her love for me?
Such deep questions.
Why would a complete, perfect God need to figure out someone else's love?
Because love in its purest spiritual form is ever expanding. It isn't static. To answer those questions, to actually taste the essence of that specific loving exchange from the perspective of the devotee, Krishna had to do something unprecedented.
He had to experience it himself.
He made his appearance as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But he didn't just come as himself. He took on the exact emotional mood and even the golden complexion of Radharani.
Wow.
The text uses a beautiful poetic metaphor comparing his appearance to the moon rising from the sea. Just as the ancient stories describe the churning of the cosmic ocean producing the moon, the churning of these ultimate spiritual loving affairs produced the golden moon of Lord Chaitanya.
So he literally became his own greatest devotee just to feel what she was feeling.
Exactly. By embodying Radha's mood, Krishna could finally study and experience the very highest form of unalloyed love for himself.
That is just beautiful.
This embodiment is essential because it is presented as the only way this supreme level of conjugal love for God could be practically demonstrated and taught to the world. He didn't just teach the philosophy, he exhibited the actual symptoms of that supreme love.
So what does this all mean for you and me right now? It is a beautiful, soaring theology. But how do we practically apply this when we step away from this deep dive and go back to our highly complicated daily lives?
It's the ultimate question.
Because the text doesn't shy away from the reality of our situation. It says we are constantly being kicked by Maya, by illusion. And it uses some brutally vivid imagery to describe this entrapment.
Very vivid.
I was reading the section where it talks about a male ass being kicked in the face by a she-ass when he approaches her, or a wild male elephant in the jungle being lured into a deep pit by a trained she-elephant.
It's intense imagery.
It is basically saying that the material world uses our bodily attachments, our unrestricted desires, and specifically the sex urge, as heavy iron shackles to keep us completely entrapped in illusion.
It is a stark, uncompromising warning about the sheer power of material entanglement. The material world is designed to keep you looking down at the ground rather than up at the sun.
Keeping us under the clouds.
Exactly. And Lord Chaitanya was incredibly strict about avoiding hypocrisy when dealing with this reality. The text mentions a follower in the renounced order who was banished simply for glancing lustfully at a woman.
He didn't mess around.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tolerated absolutely no cheating in spiritual life. He compared hypocritical practitioners to people trying to secretly drink water underwater while pretending to observe a strict fast.
That's quite an image.
You have to be brutally honest about the material world's power to pull you down.
Right, so we can't fake it, and we can't pretend we aren't affected by the world around us. But surely the solution isn't just to abandon society and run away to hide in a cave.
Not at all.
The text mentions a great devotee named Rupa Goswami, who provided a formula for active, practical mysticism. And it completely caught me off guard because it specifically lists using typewriters, automobiles, airplanes, and even missiles.
It sounds so modern, doesn't it?
It really does. How do you spiritualize a typewriter or an airplane?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a profound philosophy of action, often called yukta-vairagya. The impersonalist idea we discussed earlier says you must reject the typewriter and the airplane because they are material.
Right, because action is bad.
But Rupa Goswami argues that material nature only binds you when you're using it for your own temporary bodily gratification. The objects themselves aren't the problem, it's the consciousness behind their use.
Oh, I see.
If you shift the ambition, if you engage your mind, your speech, your money, your energies, and every piece of modern technology at your disposal in the service of spiritual consciousness, you fundamentally change your position.
So it's about redirecting the energy, not destroying it. I mean, it's hard to imagine spiritualizing, scrolling on a smartphone, or sitting in gridlock traffic in your automobile, but the premise is that the intention rewires the action.
Exactly. By utilizing material objects for a purely spiritual ambition, you effectively transcend the material platform entirely. You are no longer operating within material nature, even though you are physically still here.
That is a massive paradigm shift.
The typewriter used to write spiritual philosophy is no longer a piece of material machinery. It has been transformed into an instrument of the living force.
It's the ultimate spiritual hack. You don't have to give up the objects of the modern world. You just have to change who you are using them for and what ultimate goal you are driving toward.
It makes spiritual life practical for anyone.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started by looking at the difference between our individual soul, which has that unfortunate tendency to get covered by the clouds of illusion, and the infallible Supreme, who is like the sun, always shining above those clouds.
Always shine.
We dismantled the idea of being a silent water pot, realizing that true devotional service is an active, vibrant relationship that pushes past the impersonal, blinding light to find the Supreme Person.
We push past the light.
We explored the deep, mind-bending mystery of Krishna taking on the mood and complexion of Radharani just to taste the highest limits of love. And finally, we brought it all back down to earth, learning how to spiritualize our everyday lives by engaging every resource we have, from typewriters to modern technology and transcendental service.
I want to invite you, the listener, to really reflect on this as you go about your day. Take an inventory of your own resources, your passions, the tools you use every single day at work or at home.
Really look at them.
Ask yourself, are these tools currently keeping you tethered to the ground, trapped under the clouds of material attachment? Or can you find a way to redirect them? Can you use them as the very instruments that help you break through the cloud cover and reach the sunlight of spiritual consciousness?
And to leave you with one final, truly provocative thought from the text. When describing the nature of the spiritual world, the source material notes that spiritual energy is so independent and powerful that every part of a spiritual body can perform the function of any other part.
It's a fascinating detail.
It states that Krishna can actually eat food simply by glancing at it. He doesn't need to physically consume it the way we do. His eyes can accept the offering. Now, if spiritual energy is truly that limitless, that entirely unbound by the physical rules we think are absolute, what hidden, entirely inconceivable spiritual potentials might be lying completely dormant right now in the everyday objects, the routine interactions, and the simple moments of our lives that we so easily dismiss as purely material?
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this Bhakti deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will catch you next time.